can give him that assurance because I think one of the things that has been demonstrated in the last few days, as I said, is the importance of surging police numbers quickly.
Hi, Mom.
There are 32,000 officers in the Met,
what?
and having just 3,000 on the streets on Monday wasn't on Sunday, wasn't 6,000 on Monday, wasn't enough. That's why action was taken to increase it, and I'm sure lessons will be learned from that.
I don't know what the phone was. I don't know what was on. It was on the phone, wasn't it?
Available with resources to support the police.
I don't know what it was.
Here. Can I ask the Prime Minister, in the context of reviewing the actions of the police over the last few days, does they involve the PSNI using their lengthy experience of riot control in advising the police about how to handle this situation in the future?
Well, of course, it's enormously helpful having Sir Hugh Ord as chairman of ACPO, who serves so well in Northern Ireland. It is an issue I raised myself in Cobra about accessing the expertise of the police service in Northern Ireland. I would just make the point that I think one of the issues that we needed to grip quickly was the fact that this was not a political protest. It was actually a routine gang that every case is different. That's how difficult is the police service face.
It would leave place when the authority of parents, teachers, police has been eroded so consistently for so many years, and hopefully the Prime Minister will reverse that process. But he himself has said again and again that stability of families that counts, and he's made tremendous progress in advancing the debate. But before the election, he said that as part of this, marriage was the key, and he would bring in a married person tax allowance. It still hasn't happened. Will he now do it?
Well, as the honourable member knows, I think we should support families and marriage in every way we can. I think we should set a simple test for all government policies, which is this: is what we're about to do going to enhance responsibility, whether that is parental responsibility or the responsibility of the teacher in the school, the responsibility of the police officer on the street. If it's going to enhance that responsibility, we should do it, and if it isn't, we shouldn't.
Helping fluid.
Does the Prime Minister realise that in times of economic downturn, acquisitive crime increases always? The difference this week was it was backed up by extreme violence perpetrated by mobs. With that right, can I ask him to reconsider the cuts to police budgets? He will be seen not to be giving in to mob violence, but giving in to common sense.
I simply don't accept this determinism that when you get changes in the economy, there are automatic changes in the levels of criminality. And indeed, the figures actually over the last recession disprove that. We should be clear in this House that it is criminals that are responsible for crime. It is an individual act, and we should hold people responsible for those acts. But let me take this opportunity for paying tribute to the Welsh police officers, Welsh police forces that gave great support to police forces across England.
Mark Pritchard.
I remember wine used to transport my through a little bit, right, Mom?
Today, is it not the case though that those local authorities that have to use services
everything we got except Mom
and perhaps consider lavish perks enjoyed by some local authority workers? Well, the point I'd make to the honourable gentleman is that, look, every organisation, whether it is a local authority, whether it's central government, whether it's a police force, at a time when everyone is having to make budget reductions, has got to focus on the front end on the things that matter most. We're doing that in central government, police forces are doing that too, and local authorities should do the same.
Diane Abbott.
I was on the streets of Hackney at the height of the rioting on Monday night, and I know how frightened people are and remain, and I believe the most important thing is to regain control of our streets.
That's a black
but
mom
on
right there.
The question of the army, let me say this to this House. I'm well aware how attractive the further militarisation of the situation is to some members of this House, even to some of my own constituents. But let me say this, he will be correct that the people who ordered that and ordered the use of these things in Northern Ireland is against the use of these things in the current situation.
I think what's funny,
and I say to the House, whether it's a popular thing to say or not, that the further militarisation of the situation we face will not help and may bring things to an even worse level.
You told me don't say about it.
Well, first of all, let me agree with what the honourable lady said. I think very powerfully about the fact this was criminality on the streets and about how frightened people were. I agree with you all and others who say now is not the time to take these steps. The point I would make is government has a responsibility to ask about contingencies, to work out what next, what if it got worse. Those are responsibilities we take very seriously. And let's just take this opportunity to pay tribute to what the armed services do often do in our own country when it comes to floods and other emergencies. They play an incredible role and we should thank them for it.
Sir Roger Gale.
Mr. Speaker, would my right honourable friend agree that at a time like this, and facing the circumstances that we face, it really is a nonsense that magistrates' courts have to refer cases on to a Crown Court because their own sentencing powers are inadequate? Will he take immediate steps to give magistrates' courts the powers to deal with these cases so that the perpetrators can be where they belong, behind bars? Well, as I said in my statement, we keep these sentencing powers under review. Magistrates' courts can sentence up to 6 months. They have been passing sentences. They've been doing that overnight and also referring cases to Crown Court. And I think it's vital we make sure there's enough Crown Court capacity to deal with these cases quickly.
Barry Sherman. Speaker, can I beg the Prime Minister to change his mind about a commission of inquiry? This isn't going to go away. We can wish it to go away. This is a complex, changing social phenomenon that we've got to understand in order to combat it. Did he announce this week a commission of inquiry, really at the roots of it? I'm a great supporter of select committees, as he knows, but it's not enough to leave it to a select committee inquiry. We need a national commission.
I think, frankly, we should have more confidence in our select committees in this House to do this work. I think the Home Affairs Select Committee does an excellent job. To say I don't rule these things out for the future, but I think let us start with that. Sometimes commissions of inquiry have had to be ordered because committees of this House haven't been able to get to the information or the people. I don't see why that should be the case in this circumstance.
I'll very well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Some cities have suffered hugely this week, while others have avoided violence and have managed to squash any potential trouble before it kicked off. When inquiries are established and when the Select Committee does its work, will the Prime Minister ensure that we learn lessons not only from those areas where violence was kicked off, but from cities like Cardiff and Sheffield, where there wasn't any trouble, and maybe we can learn lessons from what went right in those areas?
I think she's absolutely right, and any inquiry should certainly do that. Malcolm Wicks.
Prime Minister, may I too thank you for visiting Croydon earlier in the week, where you met our decent citizens who had become victims, had seen their buildings and businesses burned down, had seen their offices and shops trashed. People in that Croydon war zone, that's what it was, were making the plea, where were the police? For hour after hour after hour, people were free to pillage and loot with no uniformed officers around. May I ask the Prime Minister, it's not partisan, may I ask the Prime Minister, in fact on behalf of the people I've met in the last 2 days, distraught and sad people, the people of Croydon North who have been victims, I would ask the Prime Minister, and I plead with the Prime Minister on behalf of my constituents, to think again about police numbers. Because the people of Croydon, the people of London, want more police in London and not fewer. Fewer would be precisely the wrong policy at precisely the wrong time for our society.
With the right honourable gentleman, the time I spent in Croydon was incredibly powerful to hear about the immense frustration and the anger that those shopkeepers and those householders and tenants felt. But I would say this to him, the problem was that the police weren't on the streets. The problem wasn't about police budgets in 4 years' time. The problem was about the availability of the police right now. There are 32,000 officers in the Met. We needed to get more onto the streets more quickly and more of them to Croydon. It's about now. It's not about the budgets of the future.
I don't know, not the name, but I'm just putting the phone, getting off the phone for a while.
An urgent to look at what might be called
I'll call you back. I'll call you back.
It would seem that the police have to waste
A half hour, an hour.
dealing with false and malicious rumours
Love you.
of activity. And
I'm going to snooze a bit, okay? I'm going to snooze a little.
I think the honourable gentleman makes a very good point. I mean, just as the police have been using technology more effectively, so the criminals are now using technology more effectively. There are an awful lot of hoaxes and false trails that were laid on Twitter and Blackberry Messenger and all the rest of it. And I think we need a major piece of work to make sure the police have got all of the electronic capabilities that they need to hunt down and beat the criminal.
Mr. Andrew Smith.
Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister say what measures he has in mind to strengthen families and in particular parental responsibility, which so many members of the public rightly think is a big factor in all of this?
Well, let me just give him one area where already we've made progress, but I want to see further progress, and that is the issue of discipline in schools. We've got to make sure that schools are able to confiscate things of children and are able to exclude children without being overruled by appeals panels. All of those things add to responsibility. In terms of families, it is making sure that every single tax and benefit that we have is pro-family, is pro-commitment, is pro-fathers that stick around. Part of the problem is the fathers have left too many of these communities, and that's why young people look towards the gang.
You can watch this program in its entirety and other international events online anytime at cspan.org. Next, Republican and Democratic strategists talk about Saturday's straw poll results. Also a look at how the debt and deficit may affect U.S. job creation. This is about 50 minutes.
We welcome you to our Sunday political roundtable on this weekend of politics. Keith McConnell is a longtime Republican strategist. Welcome to the table. Thanks very much for being with us. And Mark Mellman, Democratic strategist, and both thanks very much for being with us.
I ran out of the house, came over here, and I saw all these vehicles under the water. I didn't know what to do, except I told them, don't open the door, stay in, don't close leave the windows closed, and come out to the roof.
These cars are all totaled. All the interiors are demolished, the motors are full of water, everything is demolished.
More rainfall is expected in the city's forecast for Monday.
A Steuben County man is in the hospital after he was hit by a train in Hornell. Police say 26-year-old Jonathan Tibbetts of Arkport was hit by an eastbound Norfolk Southern train around 2:15 Saturday morning on the track near the West Street crossing. Tibbetts was taken to St. James Hospital and then flown to Strong Memorial Hospital in Rochester. He's currently listed in guarded condition in the hospital's intensive care unit. Police are still investigating why Tibbetts was on the tracks in the first place.
5 people are dead after a concert stage collapses at the Indiana State Fair. Indiana State Police say at least 45 people were taken to area hospitals by ambulance, and there could be more victims. Indiana Governor Mitch Daniels says precautions were taken to evacuate the area. He also added that no one could have foreseen the wind gusts, which were estimated between 60 to 70 miles per hour. All activities at the fair were canceled for Sunday. They are expected to resume on Monday with a memorial service.
Mean of nature.
Senator Charles Schumer wants to upgrade security at the nation's power plants. He is introducing a bill that would require FBI background checks for workers at all power plants and utilities. A report from the Department of Homeland Security found plant workers have access to sensitive information that terrorists want. It also found Al-Qaeda urged members to get jobs at such plants to help carry out their attacks.
An attack on a power plant could generate massive economic damage and loss of life. So it's baffling that workers with access to this most critical and sensitive power infrastructure in the nation are not required to undergo background checks before assuming their position.
Currently, the law only requires checks for workers at nuclear plants. It's a small village in southern Herkimer County, settled by Germans in the early 1700s. But by the end of the 19th century, thousands of Italian immigrants made it their home. Coming up in this weekend's edition of Your Hometown, we'll learn about the village of Frankfurt and how its strong Italian population lives on today. Stay tuned.
You're watching YNN, your news now. Waiting is old news. Get the news when you want it all day, every day. Only on Time Warner Cable, not on Fios TV or satellite. It's time to get your boat out on the water. The Boating Industry Association can help you discover better boating in Central New York. It's simple. Just go to discoverbetterboating.com and find tons of valuable information. Marina locations, boat tours,
Okay. Media.